Welcome back. Now we address something that can make or break your global ambitions: cross-cultural communication. The same words, the same gestures, the same business practices mean entirely different things in different cultures. Understanding this is no T optional, it's essential. Here's a story that illustrates the stakes. An American startup flew to Tokyo to close a major partnership. They gave a brilliant presentation, answered every question confidently, and at the end, their Japanese counterparts said, "We will consider this carefully." The Americans flew home celebrating. They never heard from that company again. What happened? In Japanese business culture, "we will consider this carefully" is often a polite refusal. The Americans heard enthusiasm. The Japanese communicated rejection in their cultural code. Neither side was wrong within their own framework. But the miscommunication was total. This is the cost of cultural blindness. This connects directly to two of the 6 C's we've been building throughout this program. Compassion, the ability to genuinely understand another person's perspective and experience, is the foundation of cross-cultural competence. And collaboration across difference requires understanding that different doesn't mean wrong. These aren't just soft skills, they're strategic capabilities. In the AG era, after generative AI, this matters more than ever. AI can translate languages instantly. AI can summarize cultural norms from databases, but AI cannot feel the discomfort when you've accidentally offended someone. AI cannot sense the warmth when a relationship shifts from transactional to personal. Cultural intelligence remains profoundly human. As entrepreneurs from Kazakhstan, you occupy a unique position. You sit at the crossroads of Russian, Central Asian, Turkish, Chinese, and increasingly global business cultures. This isn't a complication, it's preparation. Navigating multiple cultural contexts from childhood gives you advantages that monocultural entrepreneurs lack. You already know that context shapes meaning. Today we cover 4 areas: cultural awareness foundations, Kazakhstan business culture, specifically international communication strategies, and avoiding common misunderstandings. Before we see and navigate specific cultures, we need frameworks for understanding cultural differences in general. These aren't stereotypes, they're starting points for inquiry. They're hypotheses to test, not conclusions to impose. Geert Hofstede's cultural dimensions provide a useful framework. He identified dimensions along which cultures vary: power distance, individualism versus collectivism, uncertainty avoidance, long-term versus short-term orientation. These patterns help predict communication styles, but they're hypotheses about groups, not conclusions about individuals. Erin Meyer's The Culture Map provides an even more practical framework for entrepreneurs. Meyer identifies 8 scales that directly affect business communication: communicating from low context to high context, evaluating from direct negative feedback to indirect negative feedback, persuading from principles first to applications first reasoning, leading from egalitarian to hierarchical, deciding from consensual to top-down, trusting from task-based to relationship-based, disagreeing from confrontational to avoids confrontation, scheduling from linear time to flexible time. What makes Meyer's framework especially useful is that a single culture can be high on one scale and low on another. France, for example, is relatively hierarchical in leadership, but highly confrontational in disagreement, which surprises people who assume hierarchy means deference. These nuances matter enormously in real business interactions. Power distance refers to how much hierarchy is accepted. In high power distance cultures, titles matter, elders are deferred to, and challenging a superior publicly is inappropriate. In low power distance cultures, first names are common, junior people speak up freely, and hierarchy is flattened, Neither is right or wrong. They're different operating systems. Individualism versus collectivism shapes how decisions are made. In individualist cultures like the United States, individuals make decisions and take personal credit. In collectivist cultures, group consensus matters, and individual standouts can create discomfort. Central Asia leans collectivist. Relationships and group harmony often take precedence over individual achievement. Edward Hall gave us another crucial distinction: high context versus low context cultures. In low context cultures like Germany or the US, communication is explicit. You say what you mean directly. In high context cultures like Japan or much of Central Asia, meaning is embedded in context, relationships, and what's not said. The words are only part of the message. Here's where inquiry becomes essential. At Stanford's D School, we teach design thinking that begins with empathy, deeply understanding the user's context before proposing solutions. Cross-cultural communication requires the same discipline: asking questions before assuming, observing before concluding, listening before speaking. Never assume you understand. Always verify. The most important question in cross-cultural contexts: what might I be missing? This question keeps you humble and curious. It reminds you that your interpretation may be filtered through assumptions you don't even recognize. The best cross-cultural communicators ask this question constantly. It becomes a mental habit. The danger of stereotypes is real. These frameworks describe patterns, not individuals. The most dangerous thing you can do is assume that because someone is from a particular culture, they will behave predictably. Use cultural knowledge as a starting hypothesis to test, not a conclusion to impose. Every individual is unique. Let me share what I've observed through my work with Kazakh universities, government ministries, and entrepreneurs. These are patterns, not predictions. Individuals will vary, but understanding these patterns gives you a starting point: relationships before transactions. In Kazakhstan, business relationships are built on personal trust, developed over time through shared meals, conversations about family, and demonstrated reliability. Jumping straight to business without relationship building can feel abrasive or even disrespectful. The relationship is the foundation. The transaction is built on top. I've watched Western entrepreneurs make this mistake repeatedly. They fly in, present their pitch efficiently, push for a quick decision, and fly out confused about why nothing happened. Meanwhile, their competitors who invested months in relationship building closed the deals. Efficiency without relationship feels transactional and untrustworthy. This isn't inefficiency. It's a different theory of business. Relationships are the infrastructure on which transactions are built. In cultures with less institutional trust, personal trust carries more weight. Understanding this reframes slow decisions as careful relationship building. The time invested in relationship pays dividends for years. Hierarchy and respect matter. Kazakhstan has relatively high power distance. Titles are important. Age is respected. In meetings, the most senior person often speaks last after hearing from others. Publicly disagreeing with a superior can cause loss of face for everyone. This doesn't mean ideas can't be challenged. It means how you challenge matters enormously. Hospitality is central to business culture. When you're offered tea, food, or a tour of someone's facility, accept graciously. These aren't distractions from business. They are business. Declining hospitality can be read as rejection of the relationship itself. Sharing a meal creates bonds that contracts cannot. The role of intermediaries and warm introductions cannot be overstated. A cold email to a Kazakh business leader will likely go unanswered. An introduction from a mutual respected contact opens doors instantly. When you can say, Askar recommended I reach out to you, everything changes. invest in building a network of introducers. Language considerations are practical. Russian remains the language of business in many contexts, though Kazakh is increasingly important for government relations. English is valued, but not universal. When possible, providing materials in multiple languages shows respect and removes barriers. Even a few phrases in Kazakh demonstrate effort and build goodwill. Let me illustrate how cultural blindness can destroy a company's international ambitions with a case study that every entrepreneur should study. When Uber expanded internationally, they applied the same aggressive, move fast playbook that had worked in San Francisco to markets around the world. The lesson is that cultural adaptation is not optional. It's the difference between success and very expensive failure. In China, they burned through billions of dollars before ultimately selling to Didi Chuxing, a local competitor that understood Chinese consumer behavior, government relationships, and the importance of adapting to local payment systems and social norms. In Southeast Asia, Uber lost to Grab, a company that accepted cash payments because the region was not yet fully digital, something Uber's US-centric model hadn't accounted for. In each market, the pattern was the same. Uber assumed their product and approach were universally superior, and local competitors who understood the cultural context outperformed them. The lesson is not that international expansion is impossible. As your startup grows, you'll communicate across many cultures simultaneously. Let's build strategies that work globally while remaining adaptable to specific contexts. When uncertain, default to formality. You can always become more casual as the relationship develops. Starting too casual and trying to become more formal is awkward. Use titles until invited to use first names. Err toward respect. You can relax formality. You cannot easily recover from appearing disrespectful. Slow down your speech with non-native English speakers. Reduce your pace by about 20%. Avoid idioms entirely. Hit the ground running. Move the needle. Boil the ocean. Are meaningless or actively confusing to non-native speakers. Use liter al, clear language. What seems colorful to you may be bewildering to others. Written communication should be especially explicit across cultures. Humor often doesn't translate. Sarcasm is dangerous. It frequently reads as literal. Cultural references may not land. When writing to international audiences, be more direct and clear than you would with local colleagues. Clarity trumps cleverness. Build confirmation loops into important communications. After cross-cultural conversations, send a written summary. To confirm our discussion, we agreed to X by date Y. Please let me know if I've misunderstood anything. This catches misalignments early before they compound into larger problems. Learn basic phrases in your counterpart's language. Even a few words, hello, thank you, pleased to meet you, signal effort and respect. You don't need fluency. You need to demonstrate that you care enough to try. This small investment pays disproportionate returns in relationship and trust. Silence means different things in different cultures. In some, silence indicates disagreement or discomfort. In others, it signals thoughtful consideration and respect. Americans tend to fill silence quickly. Japanese and Finnish business people are comfortable with much longer pauses, don't assume silence is negative, and don't rush to fill it. Use AI as a cultural research tool, but verify with humans. AI can quickly summarize cultural norms, translate messages, and flag potential issues. But AI's cultural knowledge is generalized from training data and may miss nuance or recent changes. Always verify AI's cultural guidance with people who actually know the specific context. Let me be more specific about how AI can support your cross-cultural communication in practical ways. Before any international meeting, use AI to create a cultural briefing document. What are the key business communication norms in South Korea? What topics should I avoid? How are negotiations typically structured? What gestures might be offensive? This takes 10 minutes and can prevent significant missteps. Use AI translation tools not just for words, but for cultural adaptation. Ask AI to translate this email for a Japanese business audience, adjusting not just the language, but the tone, level of directness, and formality to match Japanese business norms. The result won't be perfect, but it's a vastly better starting point than a direct translation. After cross-cultural interactions, use AI to debrief. In our meeting, my Korean counterpart said X. What might this mean in the context of Korean business communication? AI becomes your cultural interpreter, not replacing human cultural advisors, but extending your ability to prepare and reflect. Even with preparation, cross-cultural misunderstandings happen. Let's minimize them and recover gracefully when they occur. Yes doesn't always mean yes. In many cultures, saying no directly is considered rude or confrontational. People say yes, or that's interesting, or we'll consider it when they mean no or probably not. Learn to recognize indirect refusals. Watch for hesitation, qualifications, and energy shifts. Listen to what's not being said. Deadlines are interpreted differently across cultures. When you say, I need this by Friday, does that mean end of business Friday, midnight Friday, or approximately Friday? In monochronic cultures, a deadline is firm and literal. In polychronic cultures, it may be more approximate. Be painfully explicit. I need this by 5 p.m. Almaty time on Friday, December 15th. Feedback styles vary dramatically. Americans tend toward direct feedback. This doesn't work, is normal and expected. In many Asian cultures, direct negative feedback causes loss of face. Feedback is given indirectly, privately, or through intermediaries. Understand your counterpart's feedback culture before assuming they have no concerns. When misunderstandings happen, and they will, assume good intent first. Your counterpart probably wasn't trying to offend you or mislead you. They were operating from their cultural framework, just as you operate from yours. Approach misunderstandings with curiosity rather than judgment. Help me understand what happened here. Apologize appropriately when you make cultural mistakes. A simple, I apologize if I've caused any offense. I'm still learning about your culture, goes a long way. Don't over-apologize or make it dramatic. Acknowledge the error. Express genuine desire to learn and move forward. Most people appreciate sincere effort even when execution is imperfect. Build a cultural advisory network. Identify people from key cultures you work with who can give you honest, specific feedback. Before important meetings or communications, run your approach by them. A quick review can prevent significant problems. This network becomes invaluable as your business expands internationally. Let me share a story that transformed my understanding. Early in my global education work, I was in Colombia presenting a technology initiative to community leaders. I had prepared thoroughly: data, research, clear recommendations. I presented efficiently, answered questions directly, and asked for their commitment. The room was polite, but something felt wrong. An elder finally spoke. You have told us many things, but you have not asked us what we know. I had violated a fundamental principle. I had talked before listening. I had presented before asking. I had assumed my expertise mattered more than their context. That moment changed how I approach every cross-cultural interaction. Now I begin with questions. What do you see? What have you tried? What matters most to you? What am I missing? Questions honor the knowledge others bring. Questions demonstrate respect. Questions reveal context that assumptions would miss. This is design thinking applied to cross-cultural communication, empathy before solutions. Cross-cultural competence isn't just about avoiding mistakes. It's about accessing the creative power of diverse perspectives. Every culture has developed different solutions to human challenges. When you genuinely engage across cultures, not just tolerating difference, but learning from it, you expand your own capacity to see and solve problems. In the AG era, technology connects us across cultures instantaneously. You can video call Singapore, email Germany, and message China, all before lunch. AI translates languages in real time, but AI doesn't translate culture. The human work of understanding context, building relationships, and navigating difference remains irreplaceable. This is your competitive advantage. Here is your practice for this week. Identify one cross-cultural interaction you have coming up, a call with an international partner, an email to a contact in a different country, or even a conversation with a colleague from a different cultural background. Before that interaction, spend 15 minutes preparing culturally. Research their communication norms. Consider what they might expect that differs from your default style. After the interaction, reflect what surprised you. What did you miss? What would you do differently? This cycle of preparation, interaction, and reflection is how cultural intelligence develops, not through reading alone, but through deliberate practice. Resources to deepen your learning. The Culture Map by Erin Meyer provides practical frameworks for navigating cultural differences in business. Kiss, Bow, or Shake Hands is a reference guide for specific cultural practices, and nothing replaces direct experience. Seek opportunities to work with and learn from people different from yourself. For this module, you will practice inquiry-based learning through the SMILE platform. Your assessment has 3 parts that develop your critical thinking and collaborative skills around cross-cultural communication. Part 1. Post 3 questions. Create and post 3 critical thinking and creative questions related to cross-cultural communication. Your questions should explore tensions, contradictions, or applications of cross-cultural principles. The best questions come from genuine curiosity about navigating cultural complexity. Part 2. Evaluate 3 peer questions. Review and evaluate 3 questions posted by your peers. Rate them based on cultural sensitivity, depth of insight, practical relevance for entrepreneurs, and potential to generate cross-cultural understanding. Provide brief explanations for your evaluations. Part 3. Comment on 3 peer questions. Select 3 peer questions and contribute substantive comments. Share cross-cultural experiences. Offer examples from different cultural contexts, or explore how the question applies in Kazakhstan's multicultural business environment. Your comments should advance the discussion. Sample questions to guide your thinking. Question 1. When building a product for multiple cultural markets simultaneously, how do you decide which cultural norms to prioritize in your UX design when those norms conflict? For example, direct versus indirect feedback mechanisms. Question 2. If AI translation tools make language barriers nearly irrelevant, what becomes the new primary barrier to cross-cultural business success, and how can entrepreneurs prepare for it? Question 3. How might Kazakhstan's position at the crossroads of multiple cultures become a competitive advantage in the AI era, and what specific capabilities should Kazakh entrepreneurs develop to leverage this advantage? The world is simultaneously getting smaller and more complex. Your competitors are global, your customers may be global, your partners certainly will be. Cross-cultural competence isn't a nice-to-have specialization. It's a requirement for entrepreneurial success. Start building these capabilities now.